All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
It is the Mark Thompson Show without Mark Thompson, but Albert is here. Hi, Albert.
Good morning, Kim.
And
Mark today.
Yeah, Mark is visiting a friend that is under the weather, so he's doing that. But we're manning the ship, we're womaning the ship, co-teaming the ship, I guess you could say today. Very exciting to note that today is Gordon's birthday. So, yay, Gordon! Happy birthday! We'll give you the birthday balloons. Happy birthday, Gordon. Thanks for being part of the Mark Thompson Show community. It is a beautiful place to be, a beautiful community where people say lovely things to each other in the chat. There's never any fighting that breaks out, and it's just it's all sunshine and rainbows here on the Mark Thompson Show, right? Yeah, a lot of people saying happy birthday to Gordon. Happy birthday. I hope it's a wonderful day. A lot of things happening. John Rothmann will be on the show today. Hopefully, I sent him the link to join several times, and now he just called me back. But of course, I'm with you and can't answer. So fingers crossed he gets on with us today. Also, Belinda Waymouth is back from her travels. She will be with us, and she brings a guest, Tom Ford, with the Bay Project. Will be here. Yeah. So it's very exciting. Also, we have an interview that Mark left behind with author Dennis Brennan, who makes an interesting comparison. He likens Aaron Burr to Donald Trump. Compare and contrast. I don't know if the comparison works, but it's an interesting conversation nonetheless. So we'll do that after the noon hour. But let's begin this experience, Albert, with the breaking news that there's been an arrest for an arsonist, an alleged arsonist in the Pacific Palisades fire. A 29-year-old former Uber driver arrested today. His name is Jonathan Rinderknecht. Apparently, authorities are saying this man took pictures on his cell phone and listened to some kind of rap song with lyrics about setting things on fire. And people that got into his Uber said he was aggressive and strange and weird. He was arrested, charged in connection with the Palisades fire in January. It's one of the most destructive wildfires in the history of Los Angeles, killed 12 people. And authorities are saying that this man, Jonathan Rinderknecht, maliciously set this fire, that it was first called the Lockman fire. And firefighters went out, thought they had put out the Lockman fire, which is the flames started by this man, according to authorities. But they didn't know that it still continued to smolder and burn underground. And then January 7th comes and heavy winds whip it back up, and then it becomes the Palisades fire. So this man previously lived in the Pacific Palisades neighborhood and had just finished working as an Uber driver when authorities say he started the flames here. Two of the passengers he picked up told investigators that he appeared agitated and he appeared angry. And after dropping a passenger in Pacific Palisades, he allegedly drove towards Skull Rock Trailhead and attempted to contact a former friend and then walked up that trailhead, which is where they say he took pictures with his phone, listened to a song about starting fires, and after that, he took 2 videos on top of the hill where no fires were visible, and then sensors shortly after that indicated that there was a fire in this area. So, deadly fire, killed 12 people, so much damage done. This man arrested in connection with starting this fire. Innocent till proven guilty, but if true, what an awful thing to have done, the damage that you leave in your wake. We'll move on to what is going on at our nation's airports thanks to the shutdown. Absolute chaos. We saw it on Monday at the Hollywood Burbank airport, and it seems to have spread across the country now. With air traffic controllers, there's a kind of an increase in them calling in sick. They're not getting paid. They won't get paid. As of this paycheck, the current pay cycle, they'll only get paid for partial hours up to, I think it's October 4th. Their next paycheck will be a big fat zero. So they're calling in sick. There will not be, there were not enough air traffic controllers last night at Chicago O'Hare. The FAA said for 9 hours, one of the busiest airports in America did not have a full complement of air traffic controllers in the tower. So
yeah, and I think they reported within the last 48 hours, Boston, Chicago, Denver, Houston, Las Vegas, Nashville, Newark, that's a big one, and then Philadelphia and Phoenix also do not have full manpower. They have staffing shortages.
And so when the flights have to be canceled because of this, or the towers have to be shut down and all kinds of delays are underway, that affects traffic at other airports because they count on the planes that land, right, to then be readied and turned around. So then it's like across the country, there's delays and cancellations. And yeah, so this is what, day 7 of the shutdown? And
Day 7, and I think TSA is also affected by this too. They are also government workers, so I think the whole process of traveling might be kind of hairy, and hopefully they get it together. Holidays just next month already. We were well within October, so.
And then there's the thought, of being a passenger where what's going on in the tower? Like, is it safe to fly right now if they don't have the staff that they need?
No, so then they'll just wait. So that a lot of times, a lot of planes will just land and just wait on the tarmac, or they'll limit how many planes could land in the tarmac. So you might be delayed in whatever your origin city is. So a lot of times it's just more, like you said, delays. Delays are the biggest thing here because you can only do so much with so little people.
So the union that represents the air traffic controllers, they said that they're not doing this on purpose. It just shows that we have critical staffing, right? So when some people call in sick, it's not good. And it shows that we're dealing with outdated equipment. They're warning their air traffic controllers, don't call in sick. You have increased scrutiny on you right now as a federal worker. So don't do it. Don't try to pull any monkey business. But here we are,
Yeah, they said recent days 6,000 were 6,000 flights were delayed on Monday and over 3,000 on Tuesday.
Yeah.
So
So
just this morning, 720 delays. So not.
I mean, no, it probably will only get worse. Speaking of getting worse, the situation in Chicago and Portland, and we have Kristi Noem, who is now leveling a threat toward the Portland mayor, kind of, saying the Portland mayor will have blood on his hands. Keith Wilson is, she said, going to have blood on his hands. She appeared on Fox News talking about the takeover of Portland. Well, she didn't call it a takeover, but I will, regarding the National Guard coming into Portland, Oregon, and the fight from the governor of Oregon and the mayor of Portland to keep the National Guard out of their city. Go ahead, Albert.
Stations outside, they're threatening their lives. They're saying Molotovs melt ice. They're talking about using weapons of destruction against our officers. And then these politicians stand up and say, well, we just need to talk some more. Listen, this mayor is going to wait until somebody gets violently hurt or killed. He's going to have blood on his hands because he sat around and thought too long because he's too scared of the political ramifications of making a big decision to keep his city safe. That's my concern, is that you've got so many people here in Portland playing politics. They don't realize they're up against professional terrorists. Antifa-affiliated individuals are outside this building right now shouting death to my law enforcement officers while the mayor drives home and probably has a fancy dinner tonight and goes to sleep in his cushy bed. It's just not acceptable, and I'm so glad that isn't going to continue to happen in President Trump's America.
All right. Yeah, the same thing happened in Seattle with
Yeah. Let's go toward the moment where she says that it's his fault. The mayor of Portland will have blood on his hands. I I- it's not right the way that Kristi Noem is whipping up this. I don't want to say I don't want to say she's fomenting violence, because I don't want someone to, look at me and say, "Oh, see, this is the reason. It's the left that is actually fomenting violence." But when Kristi Noem goes on to Fox News and talks about that there's blood on the hands of the mayor of Portland, I'm sorry, but that is stirring some type of unrest that it seems very ugly. And the truth is, there was really nothing happening in Portland until, you know, this, until this. If the there was nothing to protest, the people wouldn't be out in the streets protesting. So who then is responsible for this type of violence? Yeah. Kristi Noem went and toured yesterday the Portland ICE facility. The Oregon governor, her name is Tina Kotek, is accusing ICE of antagonizing protesters with tear gas, inviting influencers to film what is going on here, because Kristi Noem shows up with the MAGA influencers in tow. So she goes under the guise of getting a look at this facility that's under siege. And then federal officers that were apparently doing immigration raids fired tear gas at protesters. There were conservative influencers in her motorcade as well. Portland police say they can handle this. They're clearing the street outside the ICE office. They're keeping a handful of protesters at bay, one dressed as a chicken, another as a baby shark. I mean, I just don't know how this rises to the level of some big military action. So that's what's going on in Portland. Meanwhile, Trump is calling for the Chicago mayor and the Illinois governor to be jailed now because they are resisting the deployment of the National Guard troops. What indeed? What indeed? I don't know how this is okay. Talk about whipping up some type of frenzy of wrong-headed thoughts. But Trump goes on to Truth Social, and he says that the governor of Illinois should be in jail for resisting him. Because apparently, if you don't agree with Trump, off to the lockup you go. Those are some very dangerous words. Here's what he wrote on Truth Social. Chicago mayor should be in jail for failing to protect ICE officers. Governor Pritzker also. He's referring to immigration agents. Trump pushing for the imprisonment of Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson and Illinois Governor JB Pritzker. Of course, both are Democrats. And this is heating up because the troops from the Texas National Guard arrived in Illinois yesterday, even though Governor Pritzker says we don't need help from the National Guard. We don't want help from the National Guard. Please stop. Pritzker says, I will not back down. He said Trump is now calling for the arrest of elected representatives checking his power. Pritzker writes, what else is left on the path to full-blown authoritarianism? The mayor, Johnson, goes on CNN yesterday, calls Trump unstable and unhinged. He said it's certainly not the first time Donald Trump has called for arresting a black man unjustly, and he said, I'm not going anywhere. So this is all coming to a head, and I worry that as the National Guard floods into the streets of Chicago, that this will become full of violent clashes. It's hard to see, it's hard to think that this is our America right now, that this is what we have. All right, Albert, let's do it. Time for a chunk of Trump, because we got more Trump.
Open wide.
Ready?
Here comes your chunk of Trump.
It's my favorite food.
With your first bite, here's Mark Thompson.
I have a feeling it's going to be beautiful.
Well, in for Mark Thompson, there are two key Democrats coming out saying that Trump has some kind of dementia. As a matter of fact, we've got video of JB Pritzker, who is one of the two Democrats who is saying this. We have known that Trump has faced criticism lately, worries, you could say, about his health. Long rambling things, nonsensical statements, physical appearance of his hands and maybe some shaking, this type of thing. But Illinois Governor JB Pritzker and Ruben Gallego of Arizona both making separate appearances talking about Trump's health. Pritzker appearing with the Chicago Times on Tuesday, he was talking about Trump sending the National Guard into cities that are blue cities, Democratic cities. And he said this is, regarding Trump, a man who is suffering from dementia. He said this is a man who has something stuck in his head. He can't get it out of his head. He doesn't read. He doesn't know anything that's up to date. It's just something in the recesses of his brain that is effectuating to have him call out these cities. And then, said Pritzker, unfortunately, he has the power of the military, the power of the federal government to do his bidding. And so that is what he's doing. And I think we have some of the video from this event. Thanks, Albert.
So I was going to ask you, both of you, what the worst case scenario is for all of this. I'm sure you sort of think this through. That's your jobs, to think through things like that.
I hope that was it.
I was wondering if that's it. Did you just lay it out, or you think there could be?
I don't know. I don't think I'm paranoid. I definitely, I was saying to Tim earlier that, I'm not a conspiracy theory guy. So it's unusual for me to say something like what I just said. But I think you could piece all that together, because remember, they also called for all 50 states, the DOJ called for all 50 states to deliver their voter rolls. Why? They haven't told us why, but we know what they're looking for is an excuse to say that there's fraud in the election in 2026. That is the real purpose. So put all those things together. That is what I think is really going on.
So we are sitting, of course, in a blue city, in a blue state. So do you anticipate that the National Guard will come here?
Yeah.
And are you preparing for that?
Yes, we are. And we have been for quite some time. Look, I was saying in January.
When did you start
Pardon
preparing?
me?
When did that preparation, when did you start thinking about that?
Well, I think prior to last year, we started thinking about what would happen, and governors were talking together about what the implications would look like. I don't think I was overreaching when I told people. I was told in January that I was overreacting, and I made the case that I think if you can anticipate what they will do, they are going to do it. And I don't think Governor Pritzker has spoken out of turn on what we're seeing develop and the way that they've talked about it. I think it makes it would be logical for them to come here. We fall into exactly what it looks like they're trying to target, blue cities in places that he wants to make an impact. You can certainly chill voting in states like Minnesota if you target Minneapolis and St. Paul. I think the biggest thing is that you're hearing here is you have two governors. Our job is not to do immigration enforcement. We work and do our work. Our job is not, we're supporters and partners when our guard's used for national security, specifically outside the country. Our job is to make sure our schools are funded. Our job is to make sure we're making life more affordable. Our job is to talk about housing and childcare. Our job is to make sure, as they did in Illinois and Minnesota, our kids are eating. All of those things are things we should be doing that aren't doing. But I think the preparation is to learn from this. I think the courts are still holding, and you're seeing the courts where we're able to bring these temporary restraining orders against them. But again, none of this is about to, and again, it's not a distraction, and none of us are saying we shouldn't be addressing crime no matter what our statistics are on that, but there are specific ways to do that with the professionals. Simultaneously, as they're shifting all these resources to this immigration and intimidation campaign, it's pulling resources from other things that we could use with them. They pulled out some of the counterterrorism dollars, some of the things that we could actually be using. So we're preparing for it. We're preparing to use the courts. We're preparing to follow all the laws as they're written to challenge them on this. But I think it's really important for the citizens to see this is not normal.
Yeah, thank you, Albert. I appreciate it. Meanwhile, Trump has met with a leader of Canada, Mark Carney, and they're in the Oval Office having the press meet and greet discussion afterward, and Trump tries to get a little squirrely. Mark Carney says something and pauses, and then Trump sweeps in with that there's some type of agreement that Canada and the United States will merge as one country. Yeah, not really funny. There's kind of a nervous chuckle going on. We have video of that as well.
And now, and I'm running out of time, but this is many respects the most important.
The
what you
merger
created
of Canada
No,
and the
what
United
you have
States.
created.
I'm only-
That wasn't where I was going. I was no, but and now, and I'm.
Yeah, haha, really funny. Meanwhile, Trump also during that that sit down said that there's a natural conflict with Canada. So that was a little awkward as well. I mean, they're laughing, but I don't know how funny that is. One of the things Trump did say, or kind of you get the feeling as well, is that he seems that he likes Carney better than he did Justin Trudeau. He said that Carney is a world-class leader and a tough negotiator. He said, we want Canada to do great, but there's a point at which we also want the same business. He was asked why the US and Canada haven't reached a deal on trade, and Trump called it a complicated situation, saying we have a natural conflict, but we also have a mutual love. And Carney took issue with the we have a natural conflict statement, saying there are areas where we compete, and it's in those areas where we have to come to an agreement that works. But there are more areas, said Carney, where we are stronger together, and that is what we are focused on. So it's a little tense, but it seems like, I don't know, when they're together, they seem to get along. And then it's after they're not together when Trump starts to badmouth everybody in Canada. So I don't know. I don't know. But an interesting and tension-filled moment there in the Oval Office with the meeting of Carney and Trump. And that is your chunk of Trump.
That's it for this edition.
Well, I really enjoyed it.
But make sure to join us again next time
I think you might want to listen. There's nothing wrong with listening.
for another chunk of Trump.
Also this morning, James Comey, former FBI director, pleads not guilty of lying to Congress after this indictment. There was even a witness, apparently, that is undermining the whole case against James Comey. The hope is, with the Comey camp, that this will never even get to trial or see the light of day, that it will be quickly dealt with. But still, former FBI director James Comey pleaded not guilty on charges of lying to Congress. This, of course, after Trump pressured Attorney General Pam Bondi to prosecute political enemies. And you know what happens if you don't prosecute the people Trump wants you to prosecute? He'll find a way to get rid of you. So I guess she had to do it. The judge set the trial date for January 5th. Comey's legal team is hoping to avoid trial completely. There were protesters outside the courthouse with signs reading "Show Trial" and trumped up charges. Comey has been we know, target of Trump's consternation since the first administration, when he launched this investigation into the Russian interference into the election of 2016 and possible collusion on the part of Trump's campaign. That's all it took. From that moment on, James Comey was on Trump's bad guy list. So the charges against him stem from a congressional hearing that was held in September of 2020. He's accused of lying when he said he stood by earlier testimony given in 2017 about whether he authorized someone else at the FBI to be an anonymous source in news reports. Prosecutors say that he authorized a leak to news outlets, but charging documents don't reveal the outlets in question or what type of leak it was, what it was about. Yeah. So that's Trump retribution tour ongoing here. And that's what we have, sadly. And they say they have a central witness that undermines this whole case. But still, Comey has to get dragged into court. Now, I think Mark took the Herschel Walker drop with him today. A werewolf and a vampire. But there's news about Senator Herschel Walker today as well. He has now been officially confirmed by the Senate, Mr. Walker, as the U.S. ambassador to the Bahamas. Yeah. As a matter of fact, we haven't had an ambassador to the Bahamas in 15 years, but we do now. Yeah, Walker will be the first U.S. ambassador to the Bahamas in nearly 15 years. The U.S. embassy there has been led by a series of charges d'affaires since 2011. And we know Walker is a major MAGA guy. He is a former NFL player. He won the Heisman at the University of Georgia. He ran for Senate in 2022, lost to Democratic Senator Raphael Warnock. Went down to a runoff race, though, in that one. And he had a lot of scandal during that election. Financial troubles, questions about his past.
Yeah, I think some personal life stuff came up during that time.
Some friends got a little sticky there. He weeks before the election, it was revealed by one report that he paid for an abortion, even though he was running on an anti-abortion platform. So, so there he is. Now he's will be serving as the ambassador to the Bahamas, representing the United States of America.
That doesn't sound like a half bad gig, Kim.
No, it really doesn't.
Back and forth to the Bahamas,
He's just hanging out on the beach, doing what he does on the beach. It's fine. It'll be a good, nice break, maybe. I don't know. Unless you have to go to some official function and speak, in which case then maybe you cause an international incident, because I don't think his brain works properly.
I'd be willing to bet my lunch that there's alcohol involved.
You might be enjoying a lot of beverages on the beach.
Yeah, I guess so. I don't know. Well, it appears that our wonderful John Rothmann is having problems connecting. He keeps trying to call me, but clearly I can't take the call. But I keep sending.
I can play a little breaker so we could
let's do it.
Time, and we could try to get Mr. Rothmann on, because I know there's a lot of people who look forward to.
I know. So let me call him back, and we'll do a quick little break here. It is the Mark Thompson Show.
Let me pick one of the longer ones. Actually, give me
The Mark Thompson Show.
Smash it with your iron rod. Use Mark Thompson.
Hey, which one of you is Mark Thompson?
What he's got going here is a situation.
It's unbelievably offensive.
Put up your pants, my man. Pull up those pants.
Ralph Nader just sent me a book. Did he send you one too?
I offer this sincere apology to you today.
Everything is going extremely well.
Calling me a liar? Now what you call him?
You, sir, are a liar.
You are a cover-up artist, and you are a liar.
Liar, liar, your pants are on fire!
Google told me.
Can you let him finish, sir? It was wrong, it was stupid, and I'm trying to be a better person.
No.
I'm going to tell you what I think.
What are the porn stars doing?
Do you have a secret talent?
Doesn't anybody but a weed?
100% effective, how about that?
Say what?
And this is their new host.
There is no defense for my conduct.
I misspoke. I stand corrected.
And I wanted to apologize to the Asian community, the Asian American community.
Time's up, mother effers.
And it is the Mark Thompson Show, and we have the problem solved, and it is all thanks to John Rothmann's wife, who found the show link in his spam folder and has saved the day. We'll bring him on. He is a former colleague at KGO, presidential historian, political analyst. We welcome John Rothmann to the show.
Kim, I'm delighted, and I apologize. And my wife is standing right here. She saved us because I kept clicking and I kept leaving you a message and you kept leaving me messages. And
Back and forth we went. Thank you, Ellen, for the saving the day. We appreciate it.
Did you hear that, honey? Okay.
Well, I talked to you last night on the phone.
Wait. She's just saying anything to keep me out of her hair for an hour.
Oh, of course. Of course. It benefits her as well.
Hair? What hair?
John Rothmann, I talked to you on the phone last night and you mentioned Pam Bondi and this whole thing that happened with Senator Whitehouse yesterday. She appears at this Senate hearing and boy, she comes out swinging. There's a picture of her and she kind of has her arms folded and she's looking down her nose at people. It is this attitude. She comes with an attitude, never takes the questions posed leveled at her seriously. You know, she has no intention of answering anything. She's come with a binder of responses. You could see her flipping through the binder to the response about how she's going to, take down this particular senator with what she has to say. Albert has video of at least some of what happened here. So let's take a look at what happened.
Okay. You sit here and make salacious remarks, once again, trying to slander President Trump when you're the one who was taking money from one of Epstein's closest confidants, I believe. I could be wrong. Correct me, Reid Hoffman.
Okay, I will correct you. This guy you talk about has never given me a dime. You are making that up. And just by the way, how weird it is that an attorney general coming to the Judiciary Committee for an oversight hearing prepares Oppo research on the senators, plus false Oppo research, plus is so sloppy that she says it, even though it's false. I mean, really, this MAGA DOJ stuff is getting out of hand.
It almost, though, thank you, Albert. It almost, John, is like it doesn't matter what she says, whether it's true or not. She's able to take control of the meeting by whatever, lies she's leveling. And then it becomes more about that than it becomes about the questions asked by the senators.
You're right. And it goes even further than that. This morning, the president of the United States called for JB Pritzker, the governor of Illinois, and the mayor of the city, Brandon Johnson of Chicago, to be put in jail.
Yeah, I saw that. We talked about it.
Today? Before I got on?
Yeah.
How dare you talk about something before I got on?
But carry on. Go ahead.
No, I mean, this is so outrageous. Now, the trial of former Director Comey starts January 5th. Yeah. And they're only giving 2 or 3 days for the whole issue. It is being labeled by some a vindictive, selective prosecution. And I'm going to make a statement now that I hope everyone listening understands clearly. This president is out of control, and he is a danger to the American political system. And we must recognize clearly that we are in an existential constitutional crisis. It is a crisis representing the executive branch versus the judiciary. And the president is basically saying he doesn't give a tinker's damn one way or the other, whether or not it matters what the judiciary does. So may I tell you, and I don't say this lightly, I'm not an alarmist. I'm not somebody who is prone to hysteria. I'm a very logical person and a student of the American presidency. So let me make the statement clearly. There has never been a president of the United States of America who has so abused the power of his office and challenged the very nature of the American Constitution. It is one of the most appalling things I have ever seen. And frankly, it needs to be stopped and stopped quickly.
Well, how do we do that, John Rothmann?
There's only one way to do it, and that's through the Supreme Court. And I want you to know the Supreme Court must now be prepared. They are in session. They came back on Monday. They must deal with the question of whether or not this president has exceeded his executive authority.
So you mean by issue instead of some type of impeachment proceeding? When you say it must be stopped, are you talking about the issue of the National Guard going into American cities in particular?
That's the Supreme Court decision. There are cases now brought by the city of Portland, brought by others who are concerned about this. And it is now up to the president to pursue this as he sees fit. But the courts have to stand up and just say no. So, Kim, what I'm telling everybody very clearly is the court should be on a fast track, and they are open. They are in session. There is no excuse why they would not immediately rule on this question.
Well,
now, there
we
is a
saw-
question about what the White House would do, and the
Right.
White House press secretary is indicating that she really doesn't care one way or the other what the court does, that the
Right.
White House is going to do what it wants. Do you understand that is an abuse of power?
Well,
And
Trump
that is,
said, John, that he is considering, he would consider stepping around the courts and invoking the Insurrection Act.
that is correct. And on what grounds can he invoke the Insurrection Act? A president should not and must not have unilateral power. But you're absolutely right, Kim. Your observation is spot on. And my argument clearly and precisely is this. We are now seeing a president out of control. Now, let me point one other thing out to you, to me is the most critical thing of all. The Republicans are being silent, definitely silent. They're doing absolutely nothing to stand up to this president. And that to me is even more appalling than what the president is doing in a way, because we have a constitution based on checks and balances. There is no balance. By the way, if you've not read Article 10 of the Constitution of the United States, take a look at it, because that article, Article 10, is what is now being invoked by states that are very upset about what's happening in Illinois and in Oregon. And they are saying the president has exceeded his authority. Now, let me tell you something. I don't care what the court says. Boy, that sounds like Donald Trump.
I know. For a
I
minute
don't
you
care
did.
what the court says.
What?
The simple truth, that's why I did it, of course. The simple truth is he is violating his oath of office, and he is violating the Constitution. And if you read the sections of the Constitution dealing with grounds for impeachment, he's there. He's there. But you have a Republican Congress that won't do anything. I listened yesterday to the Speaker of the House, Speaker Johnson, who would not raise any objection to what Donald Trump is doing. And that to me is an abdication of his duty as well. So if you ask me where we are, my answer is we have one other issue. Lindsey Hilligan, who is the new U.S. attorney, there is a court challenge to her appointment. She's been in office just about 2 weeks. There was no process to it. She was the president's personal attorney. He put her there to issue an indictment of Jim Comey. And let me tell you something. I'm not here to argue whether or not you like Jim Comey or not. That's irrelevant. But the indictment of Jim Comey was at the instigation of the president of the United States. There would have been no indictment had not this president demanded it. And that to me is an abuse of power again. The politicization of the Justice Department is the scariest damn thing you could imagine in terms of our domestic concerns.
Well, you talked about the Supreme Court and how they need to get involved. And Luis, thank you for the 5. He says, John, do you mean the same SCOTUS that granted him total immunity? Good luck, my friend. I'm moving to Spain, writes Luis. Well, that's the thing, John, is people don't trust the Supreme Court to do what they need to do in any of these cases because it all looks so skewed.
Well, there are 2 justices that matter now. The Chief Justice, John Roberts, and Amy Coney Barrett. Both have at various times expressed deep skepticism about what the president is doing. And it is my hope that they will stand up. But here's the next question. Let's assume the Supreme Court rules a particular way that Donald Trump doesn't like. His press secretary is saying, we don't care what the Supreme Court says. And that is really horrific. And I don't know if people can understand this clearly and precisely, but this country's in deep trouble. I want to raise another issue with you, and I know we have a little time today because Mark is out, and I get you all to myself. I want to make clear as well. You now have Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s Health and Human Services issuing a recommendation on vaccines, no longer requiring vaccines for COVID, and saying, consult with your physician. It is the dumbest damn thing I've ever heard. And I had a call this morning from a friend of mine who works for FEMA who said, John, if there is a major disaster in this country, we have been so cut back this country will bear the terrible consequences of what is happening. FEMA is not prepared, and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has gutted the vaccine system. And this administration is a walking disaster. By the way, let me be clear. I'm not hysterical. I've been through many presidential administrations. I worked for Richard Nixon. I saw things that were terrible happening during Nixon's administration, but I've never seen anything like this, ever, ever, ever. And it scares me because I cling to the Constitution. You know, Kim, I carry this. I'm going to hold it up. I
have
carry
one here
with me
too. I have a little
a
pocket Constitution. Yeah,
I
you,
carry a
you
pocket
and I
Constitution.
both, right next to me. But here's
Yep.
the thing, John, is that this is not the first time that Trump has trampled upon the Constitution. I mean, he did it with tariffs, right? The Congress
court
is
has
supposed
to
to
rule
approve
on that.
and he doesn't care. He's done it in multiple instances, showing that the Constitution really doesn't mean much to him. And that's something that kind of has been rolling around in my brain. Here is an officer of the United States, right, who has to stand and take the oath of office, promising to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. So what are the ramifications then? What are the consequences if a president does not preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution?
The only alternative, Kim, is impeachment. But I
Right.
want to point something out to you that yesterday, and I think I asked you last night if we have the sound on it. The president saying, and I want to quote him directly, exactly, Democrats are like insurrectionists. That was his quote. Democrats are like insurrectionists.
Which is really rich, because look who the real insurrectionist is, right? I mean, come on.
But that's
James.
Go
I
ahead.
love this comment from James Watson. He says the fascists intend to incite a strong reaction in order to justify their actions. Don't play into their efforts. Also, beware obvious inciters posing as progressives. So people, are left with the only recourse for people, many feel like, is I'm going to protest. I'm going to make a sign. I'm going to go out on the No King's Day protest. And then all of a sudden, one worries that they could be seen as an insurrectionist and rounded up as part of this Trump's crackdown on free speech.
You're exactly right.
Yeah, it's a very dark days in America, because things that are wholly American, raising your voice, protesting, are now things that become more and more scary.
Can I ask a question of you and our listeners? This is so obvious to me, so clear. Why is it that people don't get it? And where are the Republicans? I taught a class yesterday, and I pulled out a copy of Margaret Chase Smith's Declaration of Conscience, June 1st, 1950. A woman, a senator from the state of Maine. Her rising in the Senate was to oppose Joe McCarthy, but it was exactly the same words. And I remember words from the movie Judgment at Nuremberg, where a comment is made, there is a fear abroad in the land. And make no mistake, there is a fear abroad in the land.
There is a fear abroad here. I mean, it's so interesting when things people have written decades and decades ago, or even centuries ago, seem so pertinent to right now.
Yeah. So I wanted to make the point right off the bat with you that what is happening to James Comey is a persecution, not a prosecution. I hope that the court that has already said when they convene in January, it'll be a very short trial.
Yeah.
I think what the Comey people, the defense attorneys, are going to do is to take out all the statements Donald Trump has made, demanding a prosecution of Comey. And they're going to say this should be thrown out. And you know something? It ought to be thrown out, because it is a political attack on a former director of the FBI. And let me point out historically, this is the first time in the history of our country that a director of the FBI has been indicted. And I would remind you that a Trump appointee was fired because he would not persecute Jim Comey.
Sure. They'll fire you until you do what he wants.
Yeah. It's not a question of whether Comey is innocent or guilty, although he's clearly innocent. It is the fact that the president was so determined. And let me tell you, talk about weaponization of the Justice Department. Weaponization, Kim? We have never had a weaponization of the Justice Department of the likes of what we are seeing today. But again, I pose the question to all of our listeners, and many of you send comments. How is it possible that Trump supporters, that Republicans are blind to what is happening? How is it possible that they can't see it? It's as plain as can be. It's out in the open. The president says it every day. What the heck is going on here?
You think so, but then you maybe tune in, as you are wont to do sometimes, to conservative media, and they're not saying that. What they're saying is, look at all those protesters. Let's find the most outrageous footage we can show you of how our federal officers, our ICE officers, and our federal authorities are in danger because of these lawless, Antifa crazy protesters throwing things at them, and they all need to be, put down by the government and rounded up and taken away so that our city streets are safe. They believe the lies they're being fed.
Yeah, and by the way, let's talk about the executive order on Antifa as a terrorist organization. Antifa doesn't have an address. There is no national board of Antifa. These are local people in various communities who call themselves Antifa. And Antifa is not a terrorist organization because it's not an organization. It's people who go out into the streets to protest. Some of them have protested incorrectly, others correctly. But the idea that the president could label Antifa as a legitimate group is absurd. Somebody tell me, what's the address for Antifa? Who's the head of Antifa? You can't, because it doesn't exist. And so we are seeing absurd elements after absurd elements on the part of this president. And may I point out once again, the deafening silence of the Republicans. And that to me is the real crime. Do you realize when all of this is over, when Trump is long gone, the Republican Party will have to suffer the consequences of having supported the positions of this man, who I would suggest to you is the president who has most abused the power of the presidency.
Or not, or they won't have to suffer the consequences once Trump is
they
out
will.
of office. And because what if there's no election? That he brings in Vance, and all of a sudden America's different. This is how we're going with authoritarianism.
I reject the notion of no elections, and I think Democrats and Republicans in the House and Senate will do the same thing. By the way, remember that elections are state by state.
Right.
There is not a federal mandate, and therefore most states would ignore such an executive order. But do you understand?
Let me tell you something, John, because right now there's a case pending where Trump wants to get rid of mail-in balloting. 1 out of 3 American voters vote as far as mailing their ballot in, and he wants to get rid of that.
He can't.
That's the argument, but he sure is
trying
trying to. Okay.
He can't, because it's not a federal matter. And by the way, he issued an executive order on this question.
Right.
Some of you who read his executive orders, these elections are state by state. He cannot order states to do anything when it comes to elections. And for people who ask me, what if he were to declare martial law? I would tell you that then America would no longer be America. We'd be facing a dictator. And I don't believe we want that, and I don't believe the American people will stand for it.
Well, I'm sure I'm headed down that path with National Guard being deployed against the U.S. citizens.
Except for the Supreme Court, which will have to rule on whether it's legal or not. And I would suggest to you as well that when the President of the United States of America calls Democrats, the Democratic Party, are like insurrectionists, that to me is a terrifying statement. But you're right. It's all speculation at this point, but I think we need to sound the alarm. We need to understand the danger that Donald Trump represents. One other quick point. Do you remember during the campaign, he denied that he had ever read the Project 2025?
Yeah. I don't know what that's about, John. I have nothing to do with Project 2025. Right.
Well, now, again, if Albert has the sound, but we don't have to play it right now, he now admits that's exactly what he's doing. That's his playbook. Project 2025. He is dishonest, despicable, and a threat to American democracy.
I didn't see him admit that. I haven't seen that come out, but I mean, it's obvious when he hires everyone from the Heritage Foundation, including the architects of Project 2025, to implement it and be in charge. I don't know how people don't see it.
Yeah, well, that's exactly my point. I don't understand just what you've said.
Yeah.
I don't understand how people don't get what Donald Trump is doing to America. And again, where are the Republicans? Believe me, if Joe Biden had pulled something like this, the Republicans would be up in arms. They'd be calling for his removal from office. And maybe the court will act appropriately. I hope they will. You mentioned tariffs.
Mm-hmm.
The president has no authority under the Constitution to impose tariffs.
And yet,
that is a job assigned by the Constitution to the Congress.
Right.
What will Thomas and Alito, the two Trump loyalists, do when this comes to a vote before the Supreme Court? Are they going to give their loyalty to Donald Trump or their loyalty to the Constitution?
Well, what will they do when faced with this other issue that we talked about, which is the mail-in ballots? I think this is a huge issue. And I'm looking at this story from ABC News. They say that the Supreme Court will heard arguments about the broader question of, as you say, John, who has the right to file a federal lawsuit challenging election law, the outcome of which could not only revive the mail-in ballot case, but open the door to a wave of new legal challenges to election law. And
I
so,
agree.
One worries about what the now untrustworthy, in my opinion, Supreme Court will say about this. What happens, John, if they say Trump can do this? Is all hope lost?
If that were to come down as a decision, America would no longer be a free country. And that to me is the scariest thing of all.
Mm-hmm.
It can happen here. It is happening here. But I have hope in this sense. We saw in the election of 2000, Republican secretaries of state from around the country opposing what Donald Trump was doing. They did it publicly. Now, some would say, well, it didn't have any impact. It did have an impact. When Donald Trump challenged the 2020 election, along with Rudy Giuliani, he lost virtually every single court battle.
Yeah.
Now, you are correct in raising the question about the Supreme Court. What will the Supreme Court do? Well, I have to believe, and I'm saying this very matter-of-factly, I have to believe that the court will do the right thing, because otherwise all bets are off. Our freedoms are at stake.
I think all bets are already off. Vilma writes, today, in Trump's eyes, all protesters, peaceful or not, are insurrectionists.
Yes, Vilma, nice to hear from you. 100% correct. There's no doubt about it. But can you imagine a president of the United States saying about the major opposition party in this country that it is like insurrectionists? I mean, does anybody out there really believe Democrats are like insurrectionists? Let me tell you what insurrection is. It's what happened on January 6th. That was an insurrection. And did you hear Donald Trump call it an insurrection? No. By the way, you heard what Speaker Johnson is doing now. He wants to constitute a new committee in the House of Representatives to reopen the question of the January 6th committee. And if anybody asks you why Liz Cheney was pardoned by Joe Biden, or why Adam Kinzinger was pardoned by Joe Biden, the answer is because Donald Trump threatened to put them on trial. And this was a great decision by Joe Biden not to allow Donald Trump to do that. All bets are off on this, though. And I admit every day I wake up or I go to bed with more angst and more concern. And all that I do is every speech I give, I'm giving a talk this afternoon. I'm giving another talk tomorrow afternoon. I intend to do everything I can, raising my voice and using my credibility to let people know that this really is the greatest crisis facing our nation since the Civil War.
We have a picture on the screen right now of the real insurrection, where MAGA descended on the U.S. Capitol to prevent the vote from being certified, the American process, the people's voice from being heard. And when I look at this picture, I get angry all over again because no consequences for Trump, no consequences for the people that flooded the Capitol, that had our lawmakers cowering in fear. No consequences.
Trump pardoned.
Everybody pardoned. No consequences. And so, that was like the first thing, the first nail in the dead hope coffin. Luis writes, John, because we're getting dumber as a society, absent of critical thinking skills, look at the war on higher education, as you wonder why people don't get it. That's what Luis
I understand there's a war on higher
Mhm.
education. I want to remind everybody that just this week, 3 scientists who work for the University of California were given the Nobel Prize. And Donald Trump is waging a war against the University of California system. And the American people need to wake up and understand it. But you know something, Kim? I know, and if Mark were sitting here with you, he would look at me and shake his head and say, I am terribly naive. But I may be naive, but I prefer to be naive and believe that what we have in this country can be preserved. Because if not, we're all in trouble. All of us.
So you put your hope, it seems, in the Supreme Court rising up and doing the right thing. But I think Randy has a point here. He says the Republicans in the House and Senate are cowering in the corner, hoping they don't get primaried. I think, Randy, to your mention of the Republicans in Congress, it's going to have to be the lawmakers, the Republican lawmakers, that the party of which, by the way, they love to tout their patriotism and carry around the U.S. flag, right? If they are true patriots, how long can they look away from the trampling of
That's
the Constitution?
exactly right.
It
By the
will
way, there's
have-
one other point.
It'll
You know,
have
the
to be
House-
them. They'll have to rise up and say that the Constitution is more important than being primaried, than being in power, than anything else. That has to come first. That's the only way we survive this, in
No, I
my
agree, but
eyes.
you understand, the House of Representatives is not even in session. And why are they not in session? Because the Democrats won a special election, which now gives them 218 votes, which means that the issues involving Jeffrey Epstein can be brought to the whole House for a vote.
Right.
And the Republican leadership, for some reason, at the instruction of the White House, are determined to avoid that.
You don't
And
want to
all I
be-
can
talk
say
about
is
that. Yeah.
the Jeffrey Epstein case, which frankly doesn't interest me per se. I mean, it interests me academically, perhaps, but do you understand the suppression of evidence in one of the most disgusting sex trafficking cases? And it's being used politically. And you have to ask why. And I'm going to say this, and I may be wrong, and I hope I am. I believe it is to protect Donald Trump and his dear friend Jeffrey Epstein because of their close and personal relationship. And that to me is equally disturbing. Can you imagine? Here we are with a government shutdown and with complete disruptions, and the Republicans won't call their members back to the House of Representatives. It is shameful. And may I say, I'm supposed to be away the next 2 weeks, but all bets are off because where we're going, we would have to fly.
Right.
And as you know, the air traffic controllers are staging this, and we were supposed to visit presidential libraries. Well, the presidential libraries are closed. So I may not go on my brief 1-week vacation.
Well, it will be a benefit to us if that happens. You can always reschedule.
Yeah, well, the point was to go to a wedding. I
Oh.
really feel sorry for the bride because many of the people who were planning to go will not go. But this is something everybody needs to understand. Let me just go backtrack for a second. I know we have a few minutes. Can you imagine the National Commission on Vaccines not recommending the COVID vaccine for all Americans? Are they nuts? And what's going to happen if we have another outbreak? What's Donald Trump going to say? Drink bleach? Remember when he did that? This is this is beyond my comprehension. And I don't want to use a scattergun approach. I really don't. But there are so many issues. If I were talking about a scattergun approach, if I were to name every single issue and go through every single issue, we wouldn't have enough time or attention span to be able to deal with each issue individually. And that may be part of the Trump administration strategy. Hit them with so many different issues that it becomes impossible to respond. And that, I think, may well be their strategy. I don't care what their strategy is. As long as we, and I say collectively, the American media is there, we have to do it. One other point about American media. Do you understand that Donald Trump has blackmailed the American media? Barry Weiss has just been named the news director for CBS. Now, Barry Weiss is a great commentator with whom I agree and disagree on occasion, but she's a conservative. And why is she in that job? To try to give CBS cover when they attack or criticize Donald Trump. And take a look at what happened with ABC, with NBC, with CNN. I shudder because the one thing we always believed in, and we are products of the media. I worked for 30 years in the media. We always believed the media would be honest and
freedom
clear.
of the press, right?
Yep. And the First Amendment, as far as I'm concerned, what Donald Trump is trying to do is trash it. Take a look at the White House.
Well,
take a look at all of the veteran reporters who were denied access. AP is still banned from being part of the press pool. I mean,
they know if they control the message, as they've shown with their own MAGA people, if they control what people hear, then they're pretty much in control.
But we are resisting. And that's the other thing I wanted to point out. Because I'm based in San Francisco, there was a meeting in Oakland the other day by several hundred people asking, how do we resist what's happening? And they went through a whole day of resistance training. There is a threat, Kim, a real threat, that if Trump can get away with putting troops in Chicago, putting troops in Memphis, putting troops in Washington, D.C., putting troops in Chicago, that he may well put troops on the streets of Oakland or San Francisco.
The threat has been made.
Yep. So these are not abstract thoughts. These are real concerns. Maybe the most frustrating thing for me is I can't imagine how he's getting away with it. I can't imagine why there is this deafening silence. And when I listen to conservative media, you know, I suffer from low blood pressure, so I listen to conservative media in order to have some stimulation. When I listen to conservative media, I wonder, are they deaf? Are they dumb? Are they blind? Don't they understand that this is not a liberal conservative threat? This is a threat against American democracy.
Yes, it is.
So I'm horrified. I'm teaching a course next January on Edward R. Murrow and the Murrow Boys, the broadcasts that were made. And I cannot help but shudder at the thought that we don't have an Edward R. Murrow today. We don't have a Walter Cronkite today. We don't have somebody to stand up. You remember when Cronkite in 67 did a special, you weren't alive, special on the Vietnam War. Lyndon Johnson said, if Walter Cronkite's against us, we've lost. We don't have a media personality or network that can stand up and do that today. And unfortunately, and I say this advisedly, you know, I don't ever call it Fox News. Fox and news is an oxymoron.
It's true.
What's fascinating for me is when you guys listen to various breaking stories, go over to Fox, take a look how they cover it compared to CNN or MSNBC or ABC, NBC, or CBS. The fact that Donald Trump is trying to suppress media in this country, blackmailing essentially, is to me beyond the scope. But then everything Trump does lately. Oh, but we haven't talked about something positive. May I inject?
Right. Well, let me read this from Brian, who writes with an $18 super chat. A big welcome to John today with the blessings for a great high holy days, all in the best health to you and family and the cast we love of the Mark Thompson Show. Thanks, Brian. That's super, super nice.
Brian,
appreciate
lovely, and I send you the same greetings. I have to confess,
Yeah.
I knew Brian's parents very well. His
Oh,
brother,
okay.
sister, and I have a very high regard for Brian, who is just a wonderful human being. I want to raise one other issue with you before we. Well, go ahead. You got another comment. and then I'll
Yes, Sal with the $10 super chat writes, on a lighter note, my copy of the Haas Sisters of Franklin Street is on the way. So there's that.
Thank you. That is my mother's book, and I'm delighted. I wanted really to raise another issue with you that it seems to me is also of vital interest, and that has to do with another attack that Trump is waging. We are about to enter hurricane season, and although we on the West Coast don't feel hurricanes, I spoke with somebody in FEMA yesterday, and their comment to me was, this country has no idea how unprepared we are if there were to be a disaster. And I also wanted to say a word about the Middle East.
Well, didn't we see it in Texas with the flooding?
Yes.
We saw that response. You know, the head of FEMA, was it Kristi Noem, saying that Homeland Security, whatnot, that, you know, that she needs to approve all expenditures over a certain dollar threshold, which really hamstrung the response and the rescue of people being swept away, children being swept away in floodwaters. What a disaster.
It's just appalling. But I wanted to say a word about the Middle East. We are all waiting for some word from the conference, which is now taking place in Sharm el-Sheikh, in the Sinai, in Egypt. And I want to be crystal clear. I was told this morning by friends in Washington that Islamic Jihad is there, that the most extreme Palestinian groups have been included in this discussion, and there is hope. Let me tell you, there's only one hope, and that is the hostages be released. People need to understand that Israel, a small nation, has been traumatized by the hostage crisis. And if you go back and you think about how America was traumatized for 444 days during the Carter administration, remember, we didn't know the hostages back in 79, 80, 81. Every Israeli knows a hostage or knows the family or has a friend. The country is completely absorbed in getting the hostages out. Donald Trump has proposed a plan. I don't think the plan is workable, but if he can get the hostages out, more power to him. And I want everybody to understand what an existential feeling this is. Yesterday, of course, was the second anniversary of the October 6th pogrom, 2 days ago, rather. And this is something that everybody has to understand.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm hoping, but I must tell you, I'm not particularly optimistic, because the minute you include Hamas and Islamic Jihad and the radical Islamists, they have only one goal, and that is the destruction of Israel. Somebody asked me, how do you defend Israel's actions? I don't. Israel is doing what it feels it has to do. And I would remind you, the United States of America did exactly the same thing after the Iran crisis. And we've done it since. When you feel surrounded, and that's not just the Jews of Israel, I want you to consider what happened in England on Yom Kippur. I want you to consider the fact that the Jewish community in the United States, in France, in Canada, around the world, feels under siege, and the rise of Jew hatred. I want to just say a word about Gavin Newsom, who signed a very important piece of legislation yesterday. On the anniversary, by the way, of this disaster, he signed AB 715. Both chambers passed it unanimously. And then he signed into law Senate Bill 48, a companion bill against discrimination. And 3 cheers for the fact that that was able to happen. But do you know that here in this country, there were people who opposed the bill, claiming it was discriminatory? And it isn't. It's simply a bill which protects Jews in this country in the classroom. And I'm not necessarily a huge fan of Gavin Newsom, as all of you know who have listened to me over the years. But thank God he signed this bill, despite pressure from those who have been defending Hamas and its actions. And we are going to see more and more of these questions in the next 2 days because Donald Trump is really pressing for action. Let me also be clear. Trump has said if Hamas does not release the hostages, all hell will break out. All hell has already broken out. But his threats, hopefully in this case, will have some impact.
We have to wrap up, but I will say,
What?
I know. Let me, since you brought up the Israel-Hamas negotiations, the story is today that a senior Hamas official says they have exchanged hostage and prisoner lists with Israel during their negotiations to end the war in Gaza. There's a member of the Palestinian militant group, Hamas, says this list contains names of prisoners and hostages who will be released if a deal is reached during the talks that are underway in Egypt. And I wonder, John, what your thought is, given everything we've said about Trump, if he manages to secure the release, and I say he, even though he is not the only one involved, America is not the only one involved in these talks, right? If the deal made stands, and if all the hostages are released and all the prisoners are released, do you think Trump would deserve a Nobel Peace Prize?
No. And I say it emphatically. We've had a lot of presidents who have done a lot of things, but one thing I know for sure, the Nobel Committee has already said that there are enough members of the Nobel Committee who oppose Donald Trump receiving the Nobel Peace Prize. But I could be wrong. But does he deserve credit? Yes, he does. But understand, Donald Trump...
Not the coveted prize.
Well, is it so coveted? But the answer is I hope with all my heart that the hostages are released. And let me remind people, the hostages being released does not mean that those Israelis and Jews who were killed because of what Hamas did will ever be brought back.
Right.
And the trauma which Israel has faced is not going to disappear. And let me remind you, Israel is determined to survive no matter what happens. And I want to make that clear. The Israelis and the Jews are not going to roll over and play dead. And you're seeing that from one corner of the world to the other. So let's hope that this is a success in terms of these negotiations. But Hamas is still determined to destroy Israel. So is Islamic Jihad. So regrettably are too many of the Palestinians involved in all of this.
Mm-hmm.
And I am in favor of peace. I am in favor of working something out. But this is not a discussion about peace in the Middle East, no matter how often people say it. This is a question of the hostages getting out. And this is a question of Hamas being excluded in all ways from any governance in Gaza. And I don't know that Hamas will ultimately agree to that. I said that last week or the week before, whenever we talked about it. And so we have to watch how this evolves. But I am hopeful, because I want to be hopeful, that the hostages and the bodies of those who were killed will be released.
And also that the killing of everyone stops, and people are starving and being killed. And so, no, I mean, I'm hopeful that hostages are released, that innocent people that are caught up in all of this, that the carnage stops.
Yes, I agree. I agree with you 100%.
Yeah.
And Israel has to have its security, and the Palestinians have to have their security. And that's why this is not peace. None of that has been negotiated. None of that is accepted. And as long as the bottom line for Hamas and the radical Islamists is the destruction of Israel, I'm afraid, Kim, we will have this discussion for many more years to come.
I am so happy that you are able to find the link and join the show. The conversation with you is always a good one, but it doesn't have to be only on Wednesdays on the Mark Thompson Show, because you can find John Rothmann every day on Around the Political World with John Rothmann. Just Google that. It's a 10-minute podcast that he does every day. You will also hear him do San Francisco and California-centric based work on The Voice of San Francisco. It is thevoicesf.org. John Rothmann, always a prolific speaker, lots of opinions and lots of words to share. Thank you for coming to share them with us.
Kim, thank you. And I want to say a special thank you to my wife. Were it not for Ellen, we would not have had a link. So,
we
cheers.
Appreciate it. Okay. Thank you so much. Bye, John Rothmann. See you next week. Oh, or maybe not, depending on what happens with the air traffic controllers. We hope. We hope.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Hey, how about we do a little bit of news, Albert? Because then Belinda Waymouth and It's the Planet Stupid and her guest Tom Ford with the Bay Project will join us to talk about the kelp forests and how important they are, more than just being a beautiful sight swaying back and forth, what they mean to the ocean. So we'll talk about it next, but let's do a little news, my friend.
That sounds good.
All right. On the Mark Thompson Show, I'm Kim McAllister. This report is sponsored by CoachellaValleyCoffee.com, the best coffee and the best tea. The Senate rejecting two competing measures for the sixth time aimed at bringing the partial government shutdown to an end. The Democrats' plan, including health care reforms, while the GOP plan would keep the government funding at the same levels until a larger bill could be worked out. The shutdown so far lasting over a week. The longest on record happened in 2018 during President Trump's first term. It lasted 34 days. Former FBI Director James Comey says he is the victim of vindictive prosecution. Comey pleading not guilty in Virginia to charges related to his 2020 congressional testimony about the FBI's Trump-Russia investigation. Comey's lawyer says he'll file to get this case dismissed because the Justice Department, he says, is engaged in selective prosecution based on Trump's public posts where he supported a Comey investigation. The trial now set for January. The dangerous New Orleans prison escapee who managed to elude police for months has been captured. They're going to catch up with you eventually. Derek Groves was one of 10 inmates who escaped the jail in May through a hole behind a toilet. The convicted killer has been the subject of an intense national manhunt and was apprehended in Atlanta. And as we mentioned at the top of the show, police say the deadly Palisades fire in Southern California was started by an Uber driver. Jonathan Rinderknecht, arrested in Florida yesterday, now accused of intentionally starting the Lockman fire shortly before midnight on New Year's Day. Strong Santa Ana winds caused it to flare back up January 7th, becoming the Palisades fire that killed 12 people. Rinderknecht is facing several arson charges in connection with that. And of course, flight delays spreading across the United States as the ongoing government shutdown is causing a shortage of air traffic controllers. Last night, staffing issues led to delays in cities like Nashville, Dallas, Chicago, Newark. This is Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy acknowledging that air traffic controllers who aren't being paid but are required to work during the shutdown are calling in sick. So what will they do about that? Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem getting a firsthand look at the ICE facilities in Portland. She was in the city yesterday touring the ICE building where protests have been held against the Trump administration's immigration policies. Oregon Governor Tina Kotek says she told Noem there is no insurrection in Portland. And so that continues. An FBI corruption unit shut down after it reportedly monitored communications between some Republican senators. FBI Director Kash Patel saying the unit was dismantled after a Fox News report claimed it had monitored about a dozen GOP senators as part of a probe into President Trump's alleged efforts to overturn the election. So, employment growth reportedly flat last month, according to investment giant Carlyle. The company is putting out numbers since the government shutdown has stopped the release of official reports from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. The numbers showed 17,000 new jobs in November. An amazing story out of Sacramento with the crash of a medical helicopter. 3 victims are in critical condition in a Sacramento hospital after this medical helicopter crashed right onto Highway 50. You can see it here. Absolutely amazing. The Sacramento Fire Department said when they first arrived on the scene, they called on drivers. You can see them there to help them lift the helicopter to free someone pinned underneath the wreckage. There they are, the passersby lifting up this helicopter so that the person underneath can be pulled free of the wreckage. Heroes, all of them. Again, 3 people still in critical condition, and the people of Sacramento should be proud of those that helped. Republican House Speaker Mike Johnson says he thinks it was a terrible decision for the NFL to book Puerto Rican superstar Bad Bunny to perform at the Super Bowl halftime show. Johnson saying he doesn't know who Bad Bunny is, but he suggested instead the NFL should have gone with God Bless the USA singer Lee Greenwood. I'm sure it would have been a real, not that people don't like that song, but it would have been a real break. That's really time to go get snacks. Nothing to see. Dozens of paintings by the late art instructor Bob Ross, love Bob Ross, are being auctioned off to raise money for public TV stations. This artist, who became famous in the 1980s for his very calm teaching approach, passed away in 1995, but his show, called The Joy of Painting, continues to be popular. So now, there's one of his paintings. 30 of his paintings will be auctioned off next month. They're expected to bring in up to $50,000, possibly each. And that would be to fund the public broadcasting TV stations that are now finding themselves without funding. Rock and roll legend Gene Simmons recovering at home after a vehicle crash. The 76-year-old Kiss frontman involved in a crash on the Pacific Coast Highway in Malibu. The Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department says his SUV crashed into a parked car. He told deputies that he passed out, fainted. His wife said the SUV careened across several lanes of traffic, and he was checked out at the hospital and then sent home. There is a kind of some concern about Dolly Parton. Is she okay? Is she not okay? Her sister has now asked the nation for prayers over Dolly Parton's health. Dolly putting out a video saying, "Hey, you guys, I'm okay. Here it is."
Over here. I want to say something. Well, today's October the 8th, and obviously I'm here doing some commercials for the Grand Ole Opry, which is why I'm dressed kind of like a country western girl. But before I got started, I wanted to say, I know lately everybody thinks that I am sicker than I am. Do I look sick to you? I'm working hard here. Anyway, I wanted to put everybody's mind at ease, those of you that seem to be real concerned, which I appreciate. And I appreciate your prayers because I'm a person of faith. I can always use the prayers for anything and everything. But I want you to know that I'm okay. I've got some problems, as I mentioned, back when my husband Carl was very sick. That was for a long time. And then when he passed, I didn't take care of myself. So I let a lot of things go that I should have been taken care of. So anyway, when I got around to it, the doctor said, we need to take care of this. We need to take care of that. Nothing major, but I did have to cancel some things so I could be closer to home, closer to Vanderbilt, where I'm kind of having a few treatments here and there. But I wanted you to know that I'm not dying. Did you see that AI Reba and me? Oh, Lordy. I mean, they had Reba at my deathbed, and we both look like we need to be buried.
Thank you, Albert. Yeah. So Dolly Parton says she, quote, ain't dead yet, and looks like she's okay. I mean, I think that it was good for her to put out a video after her sister called for prayer. And lastly, do we care about the Rose Parade? I think so. Lakers legend Magic Johnson will be the Grand Marshal of the 2026 Tournament of Roses Parade in Pasadena. Johnson announced as Grand Marshal this morning. The New Year's Day festivities in Pasadena are going to be all about magic. The theme of the parade is magic in teamwork. And before we wrap up the newscast, I do have the opportunity for you to speak, Albert, about this. Richard Delamater asks, Kamish, who's your World Series picks?
Anyone with the Dodgers is a simple answer. So
there you go. Yep, spoken like the Giants fan he is. Thank you, Richard, for the super chat, super sticker. This report is sponsored by CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. Really is the most wonderful coffee. I've married a coffee snob, and he has been drinking the Lion's Mane coffee. It's called the Clarity Blend. There it is with the big lion on the front of it. And it's got mushrooms ground up into the coffee blend. You don't really taste them when you're drinking the coffee, but he is absolutely loving this Clarity Blend coffee. Mark loves it as well. There's also Lion's Mane tea. They have the turmeric chai tea. Right now, I'm out of my vanilla teas, so I'm drinking the mango tea, and I have to say, I'm really liking it a lot. So I definitely recommend their teas. Mark loves their coffees, as does my husband. Please check it out. It's CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. And if you do find something that you're interested in, which is easy to do because of the tasting notes they have that really explain exactly what it is that you're ordering, please make sure you use the checkout. It is the exclusive Mark Thompson Show 10% off. Mark T, no spaces, MARKT at checkout will get you 10% off of your total at CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. Belinda Waymouth in just a moment. I'm Kim McAllister, and this is The Mark Thompson Show.
Feel it in your soul. The Mark Thompson Show.
It is time to save the planet, save the world, and I know we can do it. It's The Planet Stupid with Belinda Waymouth, everybody. Here she is.
The planet Earth.
Some call me nature.
I am very passionate about the planet
Earth. A living, breathing planet capable of sustaining whatever life forms we see fit to deposit on it.
Spock, judging by the pollution content of the atmosphere, I believe we have arrived.
It's the planet Stupid. No, it's the planet Stupid.
From her travels, Belinda Waymouth, our eco-journalist, coming on in. Hi, Belinda.
Hello. How are you?
Good.
Happy to be back.
Thank you for the videos that you sent. How was the trip?
Oh, it was so amazing. I mean, Utah is just spectacular and completely unbelievable. And I had never been to Colorado. And so to be in the Rockies, oh my, my goodness, it was stupendous. And I have to tell you something funny. So whenever people find out, and I might have said this on the show before, but I just have to say it one more time. So people find out I'm from New Zealand and they get very excited. Oh my God, I hear New Zealand is so beautiful.
Yeah.
To which I answer, yes, it is. And then the next thing I always say is, but have you seen America? Because America is really stunning, and the variety that we have here of ecosystems, landscapes, I mean, dramatic, huge. Utah is just, one fantastic red rock after another. And then suddenly you're seeing a butte. We saw this butte as we were coming back down to a town called Boulder, Utah, called Factory Butte. And it was named Factory Butte. Buttes are like what you see in Monument Valley. They're created, they're the pieces that are left after the erosion of wind and rain. And Factory Butte is big and gray and very industrial looking. So people were like, well, it looks like a factory we used to know back in Poland. So let's call it Factory Butte.
What were the highlights of the trip? Because one of the highlights of your trip for me was when you sent the video of the waterfall. You hiked to a waterfall and it was incredible.
Oh, that was amazing. So what had happened was, so we were right in the Rockies. We were in the part of the Rockies that they call the $1 Million Highway, because it cost $1 million, back to build this highway when they were doing all this incredible mining. And there are tunnels that go from one side of the Rockies to the other for these mines. Like there's a 5-mile tunnel that goes from, you're on the east side and over to the west side to Telluride. So we went to Telluride and we looked up this hike called Bridal Veil Falls, and they said it was a little bit difficult. Oh, this is me when we're up in the silver mineral mine campground, and we went up this back road. It was really hairy. I mean, we're in our 4-wheel drive Tacoma Toyota, and we did a little damage, I have to say, to get to this point. And we didn't see any otters, which was very sad. And I really did want to get some moose footage for you. But after we were there for 3 nights, and that was wild. This BLM camping that you can do in America, camping on Bureau of Land Management land, national forests, as long as there is a campsite already there. You'll see a ring of stones where people have had fires. So you're not going in and disturbing an ecosystem that has never been disturbed before. But the fact that you get to camp there for free in these beautiful wildernesses, and people take good care. You know, they take out all their trash, they take out all the stuff they're told to take out, and you have to take out quite a lot of stuff. Oh yeah, that's the Black Canyon. That was part of the Gunnison National Park. That was amazing. But that waterfall, so that hike up to it, Kim, it was intense. I mean, it was, they said hard, and then you get on the hike and you're like, well, I'm a fairly good hiker. I'm fairly strong. I'm fairly fit. But it was a lot. I lost the bottom of one of my hiking poles at one point. Jake had to walk back and get it for me because it's like, I need my sticks. But so 365 feet and, spectacular. And of course, as I said, I had to get out there for the photo and for you, for the audience to, say that this stuff is out there. Go check it out because it's just beautiful and amazing. And oh, beautiful. Yeah, there I go.
There's the waterfall.
Yeah,
I have to say, Belinda, I'm so impressed. You're such a badass for the real roughing it that you did and these long, strenuous hikes. And look at you go with your ski poles.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, those are actual hiking poles. But yeah, no, you. I mean, I can't tell you how much I love it. How much I love being in nature.
I can feel it.
Yeah, it feeds my soul. I mean,
you hear it in your voice, the joy it brings you. You're just so much happier.
Yeah. And we were gone. We were 30 nights on the road. We had one night in a hotel and the rest of the time. So our Kimbo camper is lovely, but we call it our little tin can. And, Jake is 6'2" and, I'm 5'8", so sleeping like little sardines in our can. But we just, we were super happy, getting up in the morning, it's freezing. Some mornings we had ice on the back of the camper. It snowed when we were in Colorado.
Wow.
We looked at the temperatures for Utah. So I took all my cold weather gear out of the Kimbo. I should have been looking obviously at Colorado. I mean, not smart. But luckily we found a great secondhand store in this town called Silverton, and they had some alpaca and things because it was a
little chilly out there.
Yeah.
Well, let's move forward and welcome back. Let's move forward with the kelp forests in the Southern California area. What I know about kelp is what I've seen at the Monterey Bay Aquarium. I don't know if you've been there, but you walk in and there's like this 3-4 story high window. Maybe not. Maybe that's dramatic. I'll say 2 or 3 story high window. And you can see, the kelp swaying back and forth and all the fish swimming in and out of the kelp. And it is so calming and so relaxing.
Yeah.
But kelp
it's
does
beautiful.
more than just relax us. It serves a lot of different purposes.
Well, these kelp forests are home to about 750 species, so they're super important. Is Tom going to be able to join us from the Bay Foundation?
Well, he was, and I'd sent him the link, but I don't see him below, so I figure we have to go ahead and move on with the conversation. So
okay, because I don't want to steal Tom's thunder because this is really his story of glory. So Tom is the CEO of the Bay Foundation, and he's been working to restore these kelp forests since 2012. And the thing about them, it's a thing we often talk about. Oh, look at that little seal there in the kelp. So the way Tom described it the first time, he's from the East Coast. He was a shellfish fisherman on the East Coast. And then he came here and he's doing so much to restore, advocate, take care of natural habitats. But the thing about the ocean is, we don't see it. It's below the surface. And so we don't see the majesty of these kelp forests. And Tom described it the first time he went into the kelp forest, put on a scuba gear and went down. I'm just going to see if I've had okay, maybe he's having a hard time.
We're having a hard time on the show today.
Oh, he's on his cell phone. Okay, I'm just going to say we're on because...
here it is. You can tell we live out loud. We're living it live in the moment. But while you're doing that, let me say that the kelp forests are important because of their ability to help keep our coasts from eroding in some fashion. Also, something to do with carbon and habitats for creatures. And so there are a lot of different reasons that we need our kelp forests. And apparently, and I was not aware of this, they've been shrinking with alarming speed, especially off the coast of California.
Yeah, so the thing that's happening is the first thing that was bad for them is they were the habitat for sea otters. And in the 19th century, everyone wanted sea otters for their beautiful pelts. They were going to, make those, the hats, they were going to make coats out of them. And so sea otters were hunted to, nearly to extinction. And the thing about the sea otters is they live in these kelp forests, and one of the ways that Tom describes them is, they're like the sequoias. They're like a forest, but under the water, and they are like a cathedral when you're swimming in them. But this thing of being home to 750 species. But the thing about all these ecosystems and biomes is everything is interconnected. It's a tapestry. So you take away the otters, and then you have a disaster because the otters eat the sea urchins. And if you don't have a predator to keep the sea urchin populations at a manageable number, which is 2 per square meter, so they're gone. And then there's another predator, the sea stars that live in the kelp forests. And what's happened is, so the kelp forests off the southern coast of California are beleaguered because of, they lost their sea otters. There was this incredible dump of DDT off Palos Verdes, which is, terrible because that's putting a toxic poison into the ocean. And then you've got these little sea urchins which gobble everything up, and they describe them as they became like zombies because they basically what happened to the sea stars is that sea stars got this this disease. They don't know what caused it, but they went all gooey and they just sort of floated away in a big gooey mess. So then you took out another predator, and then the sea urchins were completely unchecked, and then they just were gobbling the kelp to smithereens. And the other thing that they do is they're on the seabed, and they're just going over and over the rocks, and because they're spiny, they're scratching the any kind of rock or coral that's at the on the seabed, and they're making it impossible for the spores of the kelp to get any kind of purchase and start growing down there on the coral. And you can see them. There were supposed to be 2 per square meter. They ended up with 70 to 80 of them per square meter. It was really, really crazy. And so what they've been doing is they've been going down there, and they describe it as sort of being construction workers, but this is a real joint effort. So this is the Bay Foundation. They've been getting grants to go in and get rid of the sea urchins. They've been actually even hiring the fishermen who normally fishing for these sea urchins to go in and destroy them. Because the thing is, when you get this many sea urchins and there's no food, like they said, they're sort of zombies. They don't have any food or meat in them. They're hungry, and they're just sort of like, like a zombie, looking for the next meal. But they've eaten all the kelp, so there's no next meal. So they went in with, it's kind of wild, hammers and smashed them. There were 5.8 million of these sea urchins sort of run amok off the Palos Verdes coast, and they have been doing this incredible job. There is footage of it, of just smashing them to bits. And it sort of sounds awful, but the fact is they needed to be eradicated. They had overgrown, they'd surpassed the carrying capacity of their ecosystem. There was nothing to hold them in check, and they had decimated the ecosystem. And so this is kind of it seems a little bit gruesome, but it's a success story because they went in, they smashed them up. It was 16,000 hours of work. You see, it's just it's very they just smash. And these are sea urchins that are native to California. They're not an invasive species, but they, unchecked, got out of control. Just like the deer did in Yellowstone Park without wolves. The deer population, when it was unchecked, went crazy, and they ate all the trees, saplings, everything that were around the rivers there, and suddenly the fish couldn't spawn. The water was too hot. You know, it wrecked the ecosystem. And when they put wolves back in, they actually brought back fish populations because the deer weren't ruining all the shade and the cover for them. So it's sort of like that. And the thing that's amazing about this kelp, you know, not only does it grow 2 feet a day, it's an algae and it just, you know, grows and grows and grows, and it sucks up nutrients and it sucks up carbon, just like big sequoia trees do. And then also home to, you know, these 750 species. But the level of resiliency with it, you know, the fact that it is able to cope in warmer waters, it can, you know, survive the, you know, the DDT, all these terrible things that are happening. And, you know, there you see it, you know, sort of coming back and rejuvenating. So what's happened off the Palos Verdes coast is seen as a real success story.
It's good. And it looks like it's human divers that are going down and removing. We have people in the chat that are asking, you know, aren't sea urchins food in some cultures, and don't we eat them and
so
use them instead of destroy them?
Well, here's the thing. Like I said, these ones are like zombies. They're little and hungry, but there's no food for them. So they don't. The thing that people love, it's a real delicacy. Not everyone loves it. I love it. It's called uni, and it's actually it's their sex organs. And so you find them inside. They're sort of four little orange bits inside each sea urchin, and they are a big thing with sushi, with the people who like them. You know, it's an acquired taste, like oysters. You know, some people love uni, some people don't. But what's happening is, because there are so many, and because there's not enough food, and they're literally when you open them up, there's nothing inside them. There's not uni inside them. They're, like I said, they're just sort of like zombies.
Sure.
They're like these crazed, you know, because there are too many of them. Like 2 per square meter is the size. Unchecked, we're getting to 70 or 80 per square meter, and then they just eat everything in sight. There's no more food. They're hangry. You know, they're hungry. They're angry. There's no food. They just rah, 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 rah. And they're scratching up the coral, so the kelp spores can't, you know, can't attach and grow. And it's the real indication here, and where you can see it as a success story, is the fishermen are going down and destroying this excess, because they need to bring the kelp back so they will have healthy uni that they can then, you know, catch and be able to sell.
What I am reading is that the area cleared of the zombie urchins is the size of 61 football fields, and that it's making a real difference in the comeback of the kelp. Yeah. And so, I would imagine that this is not only a problem off the coast of Southern California, Santa Monica, Palos Verdes, that it's a problem in other places. So I guess we can take a page out of the success story of the Bay Foundation, and that we can make a difference and do something to help.
Yeah, it's really, you know, the fact that, you know, these small nonprofits can be so successful, and it is a model for other areas, because of course it's not just kelp forests off the coast of California that are beleaguered. This is happening all over the world. So yes, this is you know, some people have described it like a fairy story. You know, it's so amazing that it's that we can do it, and it shows you, when you have success, you know, in one location, okay, we can model that, we can take that to, you know, another area, and it might not be, you know, out of control purple sea urchins. It might be that in combination with other things, but you can use this as a blueprint for, okay, they restored their kelp forest, now let's get on and restore ours. Because the sequestering ability, the amount of carbon that it sucks up, it takes it into its, you know, they're not leaves, but, you know, it takes it into the plant, and then it creates food for all these other species. And then, you know, they've got that carbon inside them, and then when they die, the carbon sinking down to the ocean floor. Yes, the carbon sequestration is super important too. And we've talked about it a lot on the show, that, you know, a healthy ocean is just, you know, so important, you know, for all of us, you know. So I'm just resending Tom the.
Well, I'm seeing him actually. Let's bring him in. Tom Ford with the Bay Foundation has made his way to us. Hello. So, hi. Welcome. Oh, where did Belinda go? Now Belinda's gone. I got Belinda gone, but Tom's in. Well, Tom, we've been talking about the sea urchins and the success that you've had off the coast of Southern California, clearing the sea urchins to make way for the kelp forest. And it's serving, hi, Belinda's back, as a model for other countries because you've been so successful doing this. Are you there? Can you hear me?
You have to unmute, Tom.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, I can hear you.
We can hear you. It's working.
We can hear you. Carry on.
All right. Yeah, no, I think fortunately
Tom, you're on. You feel free to respond. You're live.
Yeah, we've got you.
Oh, I'm trying so hard, but I think the Wi-Fi down here at the lab is just suffering terribly.
Oh no! All right.
Yeah.
Well, we can hear you.
If you're able to hear me, that's wonderful. I'm only catching every other word.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, we can hear you fine. I've been doing my best to describe your amazing work, Tom, with the sea urchins, and what a victory! What an amazing, story. 5.8 million run amok purple sea urchins, and you showed them who's boss.
Yeah, and it has been a terrific journey, this project. And what started out, I think, as something that was intended to help right the ecological imbalance off of the coast of Los Angeles and put our ocean back on solid footing has, grown into something quite a bit more. And, folks are paying attention to what we're doing. We're sharing our lessons learned now around the Pacific Rim. The kelp forest loss, as you may have touched on, Belinda, is a global paradigm that's impacting folks around the world. We're really happy to be leaning into this and to have developed such a terrific community of people around us to execute the work.
Yeah, it's really impressive. I wanted to ask, Tom, because I know that one of the things that you rely on, funding from grants, that you apply for grants. It's not, you've got to raise money to be able to do the work. And has that become harder under the current administration, or do you still have enough people who really get how important our ocean ecosystems are and want to fund this kind of work?
No, I think Tom froze, but at least we got him for a minute. We'll love it. We love it.
Yeah, he's our ocean hero. And, I always talk about on the show, the low tech, high impact. And man, is this sea urchin thing low tech, that you're just going in there.
Deep in the pillows of the lab. Yeah.
Yeah. But all the divers who go in and do it, they say it's like, it's like a construction job, and it's really hard because you're just, hammering, and you've got to pull them out of, the little, crevasses that they're in and things. So they have to really work at it. But Tom is, indefatigable. He is, going for it with saving the ocean, and the Bay Foundation are great. And they're doing this other project that I interviewed Tom about this years ago because it's so cool. You know how with those tractors that come in with the big rakes and they clean up after the weekends, after a day, to get all the trash off the beach, which is nice. It's nice to have a clean sandy beach. But the problem is plants actually grow in sand. And, when you're at the sand dunes, there's all that, grass growing in the sand dunes. And those plants are important to hold on. And we can actually stop coastal erosion by having, native, California or wherever you happen to be, the Oregon coast, the Washington coast, by having the natives, for that beach ecosystem actually allowed to grow on the beach. And Tom has a pilot project a little bit up the road from me at the Annenberg Foundation here on Santa Monica Beach. And I think I can't remember how big it is. It's a couple of acres, but they put a fence around it, and they threw thousands of seeds of beach species in there, and they started growing, holding onto the soil. In some parts, holding onto the sand. Yeah. The level of the sand went up by 1 meter And so,
Wow.
so it's again a pilot project, but other beaches around here saw this and they were like, well, we want to do that with our beach.
Sure.
And because coastal erosion is a huge problem, as we know, we have an unbelievable coastal erosion in Malibu. We've talked about it before, how people up in Broad Beach, the rich people want to go down to, so you just plant these natives and then you let them do their work. And this is the thing, is that, nature is our friend. Nature is absolutely our friend. We, our economies, our health, our well-being, we are absolutely dependent on nature. And so when you see people working hand in hand with them and obviously smashing, uni or sea urchins, doesn't look like we're, but we are, that is a way to bring back the kelp forests.
And it's always really exciting to see work being done and innovations created here in California, serving as a model for other parts of the world. I'm reading that there are places in Tasmania and South Korea where these efforts pioneered here in California by the Bay Foundation are being utilized and to help in other parts of the world. They're even trying to use it in the Santa Barbara Channel here in California for restoration work as well. So making a big difference. Love people making a difference, right?
Yeah, and it shows you that communities that power. Grab that power and use it. And the thing, because often people feel overwhelmed by what's happened to the planet. And I've, I know sometimes sound like a broken record, but do the things that you can do that are within your power that make you feel better. Like, you have a war on plastic pollution in your home. And you do that, you reduce your plastic consumption and it makes you feel better. And it makes you realize, like, I do have a voice. I do have agency over this, or I can do something about it.
Right.
Right. And I
mean,
think
I'm
this
still
stuff is
breathing
really
in
important.
nanoplastic. I'm still breathing in those particles, but I'm not breathing in as many in this house. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah. No, absolutely. No. If you the less plastics you have in the home, the better. Absolutely. That's a given. Do I have a minute to tell you something else that's kind of cool that happened?
Mark's not here. The rule book is out the window, and we're just doing our thing.
and we've lost, sadly, we've lost Tom Ford. I really feel bad about that. Next time, Tom, you're going to have to be in a room with really great reception. So there's a think tank called M. The first 6 months of this year was that renewables have surpassed coal as far as electricity generation goes globally, and they actually produced a surplus of what new energy needs were. They produced 109% of the 100% of new energy demands because of AI and Bitcoin and all those things, and we had a dip in China. China's emissions for the first 6 months of the year went down just by a couple of percent, but that's big because, China has been, coal driven growth. India had a dip in their emissions. The US did not. The US's emissions went up because of what the current administration is doing and, say poo-pooing renewables. And the thing that's so crazy about this, I just have to give you this number because, America is going to get its clock cleaned by China with this stuff. So American exports of fossil fuels, I think we're around 80 billion. China's for renewable energy, solar panels, et cetera, $120 billion worth of exports. So they are surpassing this country. So much of this technology, started, was developed here, then taken to China to be manufactured. They work out how it's done, they one up, they make it better. It's just crazy. I mean, it's amazing. So for the global climate change community, this drop in China and India is huge. This is, wow, this has happened sooner than we thought. India is going to electrify its railway I think within the next I can't remember what the date is, but it'll be 5 years ahead of when they thought they would have their railways electrified. So all this progress is being made. And 5 years ago, we wouldn't have thought we'd be in this moment that, that coal was being surpassed by renewables. But it's happening, not here, not in the US, but in other countries. And so this is really big. This is really big. This is good news. This is like those, sea urchins are gone, the kelp is reviving. We are making progress. So I want you to hear that, audience. I want you to know that, progress is being made. And if you want to feel good, get out there and hike and go to a waterfall or go to the beach or just walk to a park near where you live and look up at a tree.
Enjoy nature. Absolutely. Yeah. Belinda Waymouth, always with the good news, our own personal eco-journalist. I'm so glad you're back. Thank you so much for telling us about the kelp forest.
Yeah,
have a
absolutely.
great rest of your
pleasure.
week. Thank you, Belinda. And that is It's the Planet, Stupid.
More
It's the Planet, Stupid.
No, it's the planet, stupid.
Next time, only on The Mark Thompson Show.
Of Belinda, and when she comes on the show, do want to say that Luis has come in with a super sticker for $5, said, sad and pathetic that dead dude Bob Ross is doing more to fund public broadcasting than our taxes, but we're paying for DT, some other gross things. So thank you for Luis for that. I really appreciate it. And it's true, Bob Ross, even in death, doing something to save public broadcasting. Thank you guys so much. Thank you to John Rothmann for the conversation. Tom Ford's brief appearance, very appreciated. Belinda Waymouth back from her travels in the wilderness. Appreciate her being here. And thank you to you, Albert, for giving us the good videos and the good stuff.
Good show, Kim. I'm not sure if Mark will be back tomorrow, but I know David Katz will be for sure tomorrow.
Yeah, we'll have David Katz tomorrow, and Mark Thompson will be back. But until then,
Stevens for the Mark Thompson Show. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. The After Party Live is next. I'll meet you there.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.